In today's episode, we'll be talking about adverse possession. Stick around. We're going to learn a lot here. In today's episode, dealing with adverse possession, I want to talk to you about three things at least. Number one, what is the definition of adverse possession? Number two, there's 5 things that you'll learn to recognize when an adverse possession opportunity is lining up for you. And then number 3, I want to give you a real life case study that I personally was involved in. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure you understand adverse possession is not for the faint of heart. It has a lot of legal ramifications. I strongly suggest that you hire a very, very specifically trained attorney to help you through the Adverse Possession Act, okay? If you're going to adversely possess a house, please have an experienced lawyer in this field guide you. It may be different in different states, of course, and no matter what state you're in, this is a tedious move at the least. So let's begin with the definition of adverse possession. As we all know, definitions don't read like we would normally speak. So I am going to read this definition of adverse possession. The doctrine of adverse possession in Texas protects someone who has honestly entered and held possession in the belief that the land is his or her own, as well as one who knowingly appropriates the land of others for the specific purpose of acquiring title. And that's what we're beginning talking about, that second part. Now, the 5 things that you'll learn to recognize when an adverse possession opportunity is lining up for you is, number 1, and almost always, death. There always is a death that occurs. Number 2, you'll start to notice that there's no heirs. Now, this is a big, big brightening of the light bulb, and your eyes should start to be open when you see no heirs. Next, we need to make sure that there are no liens or judgments, or very few liens or judgments, or small amounts, okay? Just because there are some liens and judgments doesn't negate the idea of adverse possessing this property, but the bigger the liens and the bigger the judgments, the tougher decision it's going to be. Now let's look at a couple examples. In example A, you have a house that's worth $250,000 and you can pick it up for only $225,000, but that's a pretty thin margin. Now to boot, this house is behind $20,000 in payments, and the payment's $2,000 a month. I don't think it's a good idea to adversely possess a house worth $250,000 when you're getting into it and it has a loan balance of $225,000 and it's $20,000 in arrears and the monthly payment's $2,000. Do you want to pay $20,000 to assume someone else's loan so that you can make $2,000 a month payments and hope that someone doesn't show up and stake a claim to the house? I don't think so. Let's look at example B. In example B, the house is worth $250,000, but it's only in arrears $3,000, and it only has $3,000 worth of repairs. The payment's still $2,000 a month, but this is a lot less risk going in. Plus, the margin's huge. There's a $250,000 value and there's no mortgage, zero. That's a $250,000 opportunity minus $3,000 in back payments and $3,000 in repairs. This is a good risk, and this is a property that you would really strongly consider adverse possessing. Number 4 and number 5 on the list is no repairs and no back taxes. But that almost never happens. There's always some back taxes. There's always some kind of repairs. I don't care which house it is, there's always something to do. But my point is, it needs to be minimal. The bigger the repairs are, the more back taxes there are, the more that this adverse possession is going to be pushed out of reach. So, the perfect adverse possession house has very little in repairs to do and has very little back taxes to make up. All right, so before we get to that case study where I was personally involved in an adverse possession, let's stop for a moment, slow down just a little bit, and take a good look at that like button and that share button. And while you're staring at it, let's go over there and mash on both of them for a little bit and help us spread the word about this YouTube channel. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button. There is going to be a lot of content. Every workday for the rest of the year is my commitment to be here talking with you. So be sure to subscribe. So now it's time for me to deliver on that case study. So let me tell you about something that happened to me once upon a time. I was doing my regular business, my routine stuff, when I got a phone call from my partner, Mike. Mike said, "Hey, I've got something interesting going on here. I saw a house that was abandoned. I'm checking it out. I can't find any heirs. The lady that owned it died. She was 93 years old. And I've been talking to the friends and the neighbors in the neighborhood, and everyone says she had no one. She wasn't married. She didn't have kids. There was no one." And it's unanimous, Mitch. All the neighborhood says the same thing. We may have an adverse possession house on our hands. So upon further investigation, we learned that there was only about $3,000 in past due taxes done. And there was no real judgments for the city to maintain the house or board up the house or mow the lawn. And the house didn't need a tremendous amount of repairs, the best we could tell. Once we got in the house, we did see about $3,000 worth of repairs and updates that needed to be done. But the biggest problem wasn't the repairs of the back taxes. The biggest problem was the house was full of everything this lady ever owned. And that was a problem. You see, we were worried about grand theft, anything over $10,000. If some heir showed up and was heir to that house and its contents, we might be construed as having stole over $10,000 worth of personal belongings. So this was a big concern. You know, not everything lines up in these adverse possessions house. We'd love it to have no taxes, no liens, be in perfect condition and be completely empty. But that's not how these things work. And we get paid to navigate through some troubled waters. And this was the biggest trouble. We kept talking to the friends and the neighbors in the neighborhood. One of the reasons we knew to talk to these friends and neighbors is because when we found this deceased person's obituary, it said she was survived by good friends and neighbors. And this was a big clue that there were no heirs. So we're talking to those good friends and neighbors, and we even have our record buttons turned on and our recorders in our phone. We need evidence that there is no heirs, that other people believe there are no heirs. We also needed evidence because we had heard the house had been broken into several times and that the caregivers upon this lady's death ravaged the house for anything of value. And we found that to be pretty much true. There was nothing of real value in the house. It had all been removed by somebody. And it made sense that the caregivers did this. So when we were talking to people, we had record buttons turned on and we were documenting for ourselves. Everyone telling us, every neighbor saying, "Oh, that lady got robbed blind. There's nothing in that house of value because those people stole everything when she was mentally incapacitated. And even on the days after she died, they were still coming in taking her stuff." So we had that documented. But that's not enough. For us to go out and prove that there's no heirs is one thing, but to hire a third party, private investigator or an attorney, and you pay them real money, traceable money, by check, to show that you hired a third party to find heirs, and even they came back and reported to you that there was no heirs to be found, or that they couldn't find any. We're all trying to build a case in case we ever have to go in front of a judge. This case has to be highly documented and it has to be done right by the letter of the law. So if you notice in the name adverse possession, the word adverse. So when you possess a house adversely, you have to hostilely and openly hold possession. That doesn't mean you lie or sneak around or do corporate veils or anything. You got to openly and hostilely possess. Okay? So we, in self-protection, not knowing exactly what would happen, made sure that we bought this house in a separate, pristine entity that had no other assets, just in case there was a problem and it got sued. There was nothing to give but the house. Okay? Next, we moved someone in. Just a simple bed, a dresser, a TV, and that was it. This person had instructions to hand anyone who came to the door my card. because we knew people would be coming to the door. We were just hoping and thinking and had a reasonable reason to believe that none of them would have a claim. But we knew people would come to the door. So we moved this person in. They also had instructions that they would have to move within 24 hours if they got the call from us. And we're putting this person in the house for 6 to 8 months just to see who shows up. If no one shows up in 6 to 8 months, we're going to assume there's no heirs, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward and actually lease the house out to someone and start collecting rent. So this person moves in. We have a stack of my business cards, and people start coming to the door. They're knocking on the door and they're asking him, how did you get this house? Who gave you the right to move in this house? The neighbors were all wanting this house. The neighbors were fighting over who was going to get the house, but no one knew how to do it because there was no heirs. We knew how to do it when there's no heirs. The person inside the property would hand my card to them, and I would get a call. And they would ask me, how did you move in this house? How did you buy this house? How did you get in this house? Why are you in this house? How did you do that? And I would simply say to them, my name is Mitch Stephen. I have taken possession of this property. If you have a claim to this property, then state your claim. If you have no claim to this property, then please remove yourself from my property and stay off of my property. And that's it. I am hostily and openly telling them, I have taken possession. I am here. I'm not going. I'm not leaving. And if you have a claim, then state your claim. If you have no claim, then please get off my property. We also further acknowledged our openly and hostile takeover by paying portions of the taxes. We set the taxes up on payments. We moved the personal property taxes into our name. By the way, into the name of the corporation that was occupying it. And we started to make a little bit of those back payments to show goodwill. And then we're waiting for the 6 to 8 months to see how it works out. And if no one shows up in, say, 8 months, we're going to go ahead and catch the taxes up and get them current. We're going to move that little temporary occupant out, and we're going to put in a real occupant. And I can tell you, to this day, we occupied a property that was worth, at the time, about $75,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage house. Today, it's worth $175,000. We've been occupying that house for about 8 years, and we've been collecting between $1,000 and $1,200 per month during that 8 years. At about 10 years, we'll be able to file suit for quiet title. And we'll walk into a judge and say, look, we've been in this property adversely possessed for 10 years. We've made all the taxes. We did all the improvements. We've kept it up. We've done whatever we're supposed to do as a property owner, and we believe that it's our right to own the property now because no one has made a claim. And the judge is going to grant us the ownership of that house. I don't know what that house will be worth in another 2 years, but right now real estate markets are booming, and I wouldn't be surprised if that house isn't worth $250,000 by the time we get the title. So imagine this. You're in the creative real estate investing business, and once in every blue moon in your career, you pick up a house for free. Let's say you do it 5 times, and those houses become worth $250,000 more than you have in them at the end of your 10-year adverse possession time, or through all the time that it takes to get quiet title and get the deed. If you have 5 houses at $250,000 that you don't have anything in, that's $1 million extra in your career. And who couldn't use an extra $1 million? So do the math. 8 years at $1,000 only, if you just pick 1,000, that's $96,000 that you had coming in. Of course, you had to pay some taxes. Maybe you had to pay a little insurance, but don't split the hairs on the way to becoming wealthy. And then you got a house worth $250,000, and there was never any debt on the house to begin with. It's kind of hard to go broke picking up adverse possession houses. But again, make sure you do it right. Make sure you get with the right attorney. Make sure you send all your notifications and letters and post in the newspaper and do everything you're supposed to do before you actually take possession. And now I have a free gift just for you. It's the Creative Real Estate Investing webinar. I'm going to give it to you. All you have to do is go to this link, 1000houses.com/free-sale. stuff, and it'll be digitally downloaded, and you'll be watching it in seconds. It's very, very, very worth the wait. So please download that free webinar and follow me to the next episode.